Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Anthony Kraus, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from First Phosphate Corp. Please note, you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome John Pasalakwa, Chief Executive Officer and Director of First Phosphate Corp., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol FRSPF and on the CSE under the symbol PHOS. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having us, Anthony. So I'm CEO of First Phosphate. First Phosphate is a very unique company. It's a company that's dedicated to the LFP battery industry and dedicated to extracting and purifying phosphate for the LFP battery industry, lithium iron phosphate battery industry. We always think of lithium, but sometimes we forget about the other components that go into batteries as well. So if we look at the lithium iron phosphate battery, there's a story here that's been untold. Lithium iron phosphate battery is now approximately 2/3 of all the batteries that are being produced out of China, and about that many batteries in the world as well. It's a battery that's really taken off here in the last few years. It's always been present, and it's now gone ahead of nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistries. Nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistries will continue to exist, as will others, but lithium iron phosphate is clearly the leader worldwide. And this is coming to North America, and it's coming to North America fast. And First Phosphate has been positioning here for the past 2 years to take advantage of that. The reason that lithium iron phosphate battery is taking off is obviously because it is very versatile. And it's really the battery of mass adoption for certain reasons. It's got superior fire safety, well-defined performance, and above all, it's the lowest battery on the market, the lowest cost battery on the market. If you look as well, lithium iron phosphate battery, the 7.1% of the uses are for small vehicles, passenger vehicles. 10% is for large transportation. In China, for instance, all of the large transportation, bus, public transportation is on LFP battery. Also, there's a very large component that's battery energy storage. So when we're talking, slowdown in EVs, this does not really affect lithium iron phosphate battery that much, because if you look at all the large scale energy storage, all the batteries that are coming off of solar, wind, hydroelectric power lines are being stored on lithium iron phosphate battery. And it's also, if you look at the battery walls inside of people's garages, such as the Tesla battery walls, that's all built on lithium iron phosphate battery. So it's a very important component. And already even the electric vehicles, about 50% of Teslas are on lithium iron phosphate battery. But it's not limited to EVs. EVs is actually a very small portion of this. It's really about a battery and energy storage. Okay, so moving on, First Phosphate, we're focused on high purity phosphate for the LFP battery industry. We have a deposit that's now at the PEA stage in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec. It's got high purity igneous phosphate, and the deposit is important because it has very low concentration of harmful elements in it. And what we're able to do is, generally with phosphate that's found in sedimentary rock, which is kind of a loamy kind of sand, which is about 95% of the world's phosphate deposits, it can be purified, but a lot of it still remains unpurified that can only go into fertilizer. Whereas with high purity igneous rock, about 90 to 95% of this material can be converted immediately into what is purified phosphoric acid, which is the holy grail and is what is phosphate in the format that it's needed for LFP battery. So basically with the igneous rock, we're almost able to skip a step and go directly into purified phosphoric acid. We don't have to play around in the commoditized fertilizer markets, and we're able to focus just on high technology, just on getting phosphate for the LFP battery industry. So high purity igneous rock, as you see it here, is really the holy grail to making a lot of purified phosphoric acid. Massive for something that has been forgotten out there in the industry, and which is going to be coming to North America, and is coming to North America, and we're going to be in a massive shortage. So we're sitting in a market where we're able to basically culminate that big demand, that big supply shortage that there will be in phosphate. But even if we weren't there in igneous rock, in North America alone, just in in the regular phosphate, we are set to decline by 61% by 2037. That's just a sedimentary rock that goes into fertilizer. So there's a big problem coming in North America for phosphate. And we find a solution for that, at least for LFP battery, because we create a new market with a new rock that doesn't compete with food. That's a big one, right? You don't want to take phosphate from your mouth to put it into your car or into your energy storage. So we create a new supply of high purity phosphate for the LFP battery industry. Our deposit is also very strong because we have secondary recoveries of iron and titanium, and that reduces our mining costs. And another very important thing is the gypsum, which is the byproduct of when you purify phosphate, is fully recyclable because it comes from this igneous rock and it doesn't have deleterious elements in it. So we won't have the problems that, for instance, we have in the southeastern United States with sedimentary phosphates, where the gypsum that's produced contains radioactivity and it has to be stored ad infinitum. And I think there's been a lot of press articles about that lately. We won't have that. Our gypsum is fully pure and is able to go immediately into construction material. So we have a fully green source of phosphate for the LFP battery industry, which is extremely important. This is our deposit. It's our mining resource. It's disclosed by the company in our 43101 compliant PEA report. You'll see this is where we're sitting. We're sitting at surface, so it's an open pit mine. We've gone down only 250 meters, and look what we found. Our PEA is based on that. We're open at depth. Generally, these deposits in some other countries like Russia go down to about 1 kilometer, so there's a lot more drilling that can be done. And this is our high-grade zone. It's all open at depth. And already we've been able to process a sample of this material to make purified phosphoric acid. We've done that with the world-leading company in phosphoric acid, and we've been able to create phosphoric acid that can go into the battery. So we've already done that advanced transformation as well. This whole deposit here right now is 2.5 kilometers wide, okay? And it's got 3 major zones. And just alone in our PEA, we've been able to qualify 900,000 tons of phosphate concentrate at 40% P2O5, which is the way phosphate is determined. And that will be for a 23-year mine life. Just to give you an example of what that could fulfill, well, that could fulfill about 350 gigawatt hours of LFP batteries per annum, and that would be about 700,000 tons of LFP CAM. Just to give you an idea what that represents, that would represent electrifying 50% of the entire fleet of vehicles in North America every year. So there's about 12 million vehicles produced in North America between USA, Canada, and Mexico. About 6 million of those we would have enough phosphate to create LFP batteries for. So it's quite a large deposit, and that's 23-year life. That's only what we've determined here, but obviously, this deposit could go on a lot further into the future as well. We have an NPV of 2.1 billion, IRR of 37%, and it's a very reasonable 2.9 year payback. And we also have ilmenite, which is iron, as a secondary recovery, and a potential recovery of ilmenite, which is titanium. Now, what's really, really excites me as a CEO about this deposit is, we talk lithium all day long, we talk gold, we talk all kinds of deposits all over the world. Rarely do we ever talk logistics. When I got involved in this company, and I have $1.5 million of my own money invested in it, I want to see this thing through to the end. I want to see this into a mine and a downstream processing facility. And so we need logistics to make it happen. So if you look at the logistics of this mine, they're exceptional. We're sitting right up here. This is in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec. In case you don't know it, this is also known as the Aluminum Valley of Quebec. This is where Rio Tinto is based. Rio Tinto's got several hydroelectric dams and numerous facilities in this area. And there's also a little there's a NATO-based Bagotville that's located here as well. So it's an extremely strategic portion of North America, and it's got extremely large industrial footprint and lots of industrial suppliers in the area. And our mine here at Bégin-La Marche eventually will be situated at 50 kilometers from Alma, which is where Rio Tinto is based, and where we have direct rail connections all the way through to North America. Okay, so we're sitting at 50 kilometers from a intermodal truck to rail facility, and we're sitting at about 70 kilometers from the deep sea port of Saguenay, which gives us access to Europe and the rest of the world. And our secondary processing facility here for Saguenay is located as well right here at in La Bay, right near the port of Saguenay, and it basically backs onto the NATO base Bagotville. So in terms of the carbon footprint, in terms of the logistics, in terms of the security, in terms of the industrial footprint, you couldn't get any better. We're not talking about a mine, way north up in James Bay, Hudson's Bay. We're talking about, a mine that's going to be 50 kilometers from a NATO base, 50 kilometers from an intermodal port, 50 kilometers from an intermodal rail station in an area that's already full of, all kinds of industry. When there's been excellent, U.S. Canadian cooperation for over 100 years in the area, so couldn't get better logistically. This keeps our costs down as well, and keeps our capex focused on where it needs to be, which is downstream development of LFP cathode active material. This is our plan at First Phosphate. Obviously, we plan to extract phosphate and to concentrate it. That's at the mine level. After we plan to move it to purified phosphoric acid, which is its ultimate purity. Like I said, 90 to 95% of this deposit goes directly into purified phosphoric acid because of its high purity, with limited byproducts. And then after that, we plan to make it into lithium iron phosphate powder, and then lithium iron phosphate powder, it goes into obviously into the batteries, whether they're energy storage batteries or automobile batteries. What I really want to focus on, everyone's heard all of this banter back and forth about being independent in North America in terms of our battery industry. Well, that's the way we were built, right? First Phosphate, we had the idea, we said that North America, once it can have its own source of raw materials and its processing and get us to LFP CAM, then all of this then becomes much easier. This is all technology based. But until we have this, which is the raw material and the ability to produce a lot of purified phosphoric acid for LFP CAM, we'll always be dependent on other countries. So it's really important that we have a very strategic supply of phosphate, perhaps one of the only ones in North America, because the geology here is so spectacular, such that this geological province where you find the igneous anorthosite phosphate is only really in Quebec. It's not like copper, gold, nickel, lithium, where you can find it a little bit all over North America. We only find this igneous rock here in Quebec, and this igneous rock is so special because it produces a lot of purified phosphoric acid without having to create a lower grade phosphate that goes into fertilizer. So we're sitting here on a very strategic resource that can, funnel the whole entire LFP battery ecosystem in North America, starting with a supply source, giving us security. It's fundamental. We have done a lot of work to de-risk the project. We've got the world's largest producer of purified phosphoric acid at the table. We've got extremely close relationships with our Indigenous group, who have indicated that they would like to become partners in the project. We've received subsidies already from the Quebec government. We've got the largest producer of iron powder, ready to incorporate our magnetite into their powder making process, and ready to provide that powder back to us to make LFP cathode active material. We've got American Battery Factory, which is in the energy storage business in the southwestern United States. They have need for 40,000 tons of LFP cathode active material by 2028. That's almost over $1 billion of product. And they are already selling these products in North America. They now need the cathode active material to fully onshore that supply chain. We are there as their partners to do it. We also have similar supply agreement with Ultian. Ultian is also based in the southwestern United States, and they will be needing 6,000 tons of LFP cathode active material by 2028. We're getting more and more calls every day and becoming acknowledged as becoming one of the primary sources for phosphate LFP cathode active material for North America. We have a letter of interest for $170 million for our facilities from Export-Import Bank of the United States. We have access to some of the supplies that go into making purified phosphoric acid from Norfalco. It's a division of Glencore. And we've got an amazing amount of very strategic partners at the table, both locally, nationally, internationally. And that brings home our whole community. Everything's in place now. 2025 about this company is really going to be about, putting all this whole entire plan into action. We're a company that meets and beats milestones. We've always beat every single milestone since the beginning. We've now terminated our preliminary economic assessment. Next year, we are debating what point to move into the feasibility study and to continue with our downstream processing facility developments. We're still a very tight share structure. We're mostly owned by management board and some very close shareholders. We're trading at a very meager, about $20 million Canadian valuation. That is obviously because, as you know, in this industry, the electrification industry, the critical minerals industry, we've clearly thrown the baby out with the bathwater. But I believe that 2025 is going to be a year of reckoning where we go into that bathwater and we pull back out the babies. If you saw what President-elect Trump just said yesterday in terms of what he wants to do for projects in North America to speed up their permitting, et cetera, et cetera, I think there's a big wake up call coming here. I think since the results of the election, it was everybody getting off of the electrification trade, getting off of the lithium, anything to do with electrification. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think President Trump is going to be about anything that makes sense for the economy. Doesn't matter whether it's fossil fuel, doesn't matter whether it's battery, whatever it may be. It has to make sense. Yes, the days of the subsidies are over. We're a company that's never received more than a few $100,000 of subsidies from Quebec government. We're a company that's always been able to raise capital. We're a company very, very upstream, and we believe that it's our turn to shine in this new paradigm. We have a very strong board and management. What's really unique about our board and management is that we're very cross-functional. We're not just geology. We're not just technology. We're not just business. We're all of those things put together. Very strong Indigenous relationships, very strong relationships across Europe, all across the world. And we really see ourselves as a tech company. We're just really backwards integrating into the resource because we believe that in order for the technology to work, you have to be close to the resource, and the resource has to make sense for the technology. But we see ourselves really as a backward integrated technology company as opposed to simply a mining company. We think that's where the disconnect's been, by the way, with all of these mining projects, is they just have never been able to connect to the downstream, and we're planning to connect to the downstream. We're actually creating our own downstream with our partners and creating that entire supply chain for the LFP battery industry. So, without too much ado, what I'll do now is I like to be a CEO that's open and transparent as much as I can be. So I'd like to just open the field up to some questions, if we could have some. I believe I have to read them here. So let me see. I have a question here. Are you able to access any federal or provincial grants, investments to fund your project? Yes, we are working on all of that. If you'll see this picture on the screen right now, obviously this is first Saguenay. This is our secondary transformation plant. We've done this a little bit differently. We didn't want to spend the money to build a plant. We found a plant that's fully ready to go. So we've got a building, and this is a meeting that we had here with announcing the facility with local Quebec, Canada, and Indigenous government, and we're working on all of those facets there in terms of receiving financing. So yes, we are working very closely with our Indigenous group above all, and with all layers of Canadian, Quebec, international, and even Export-Import Bank of the United States. Do you need to have your mine online to start making money? How long until you can start making money, and what do the numbers look like on the basis where you are working with source materials? Okay, so I think that question as well is based on First Saguenay, which is our secondary and tertiary processing facilities where we will be making iron phosphate and lithium iron phosphate. And yes, to start, because we already have customer demand, as early as 2026, 2027, we will be sourcing materials from our partners, the purified phosphoric acid and the iron, so that we can get this facility up and running and start to learn and start to supply our partners ahead of time. So that is happening in 2026 to 2027. And yes, we can do that without our own materials. So we will be starting with materials from others. And then eventually, when the big boom is required for LFP, which will be around 27, 28, and certainly by 29 and 30, we'll be able to backwards integrate with our mine. That is the strategy. The next question was, what is your capital position and when will you need to raise additional capital? Well, our capital position right now is quite strong in the sense that we've got a board that has got a line of credit out to the company, and we're willing to finance that up to whatever is needed. Our burn rate per month on a standstill is no more than $40,000 per month. We have about short-term short-term cash, et cetera, of about 1.5 million. So we can pull this out for another 2 to 3 years if we need to. Obviously, we're a company that looks to advance. We're looking for non-dilutive capital. We're looking for very strong strategic shareholders. And no, we're not going to be out there being gamed by the market to raise capital. We don't have that. We have a board and a management that owns about 35 to 40% of the shares. We have friends and family who are deeply invested. We are very committed to seeing this through. We want to see a mine and a downstream processing facility develop in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec. And no, we will not be dilutively financing if that's the question. We're going to be very strategic about our financing. Okay. You had an express interest from XM Bank for 170 million preferential loan. Your key advisor, Gary Stanley, was architect of the U.S. Department of Commerce critical mineral strategy. Department of Commerce works hand in hand with XM Bank. What do you feel would be a timeline being able to access the funds from XM Bank? Okay, so XM Bank, as you know, is the Export-Import Bank of the United States. We do have a letter of interest from XM Bank. XM Bank usually steps in when there's a project to fund. So, they're kind of just saying, hey, we're ready to go as soon as your permitting process is up, or as soon as you've passed your feasibility study, or as soon as you have a project to present that is financeable based on machinery and based on some form of assets. So yes, XM Bank, we're working very closely with XM Bank at all times. And hopefully there will be something soon with either XM Bank or a number of our other strategic lending partners, especially regarding our first Saguenay plants. A tight share structure can be two-edged sword. What percentage of shares are in the float available for open market purchases? Okay, good question. So there's about 77 million shares outstanding. For my estimations, there's probably only 10 to 15 million shares out there that are sort of, in what you would call softer hands that are out there trading. We have to remember we've been public only for 2 years. It's been a very tough climate for electrification for companies in the critical mineral sector. So it's been a tough time for inflation. There's been we haven't not seen a good market since we went public, and that's been great. It's just made us only stronger. We've been able to progress and do everything that we had to do with the limited resources that we had. We're extremely mean and lean right now, and obviously, there is a small float out there. So when that turns, I think it's going to turn quick, and I don't know how much stock is going to be out there for sale, but it could become very interesting. Now, in terms of the public float, I don't know, but as I believe, if you start taking away larger holders, board and management, maximum 10 to 15 million shares outstanding out there. So I don't know what to say other than that. Okay. Now I think I've got a couple other questions here. Okay, so the next question that I got was, regarding the capex on the mine, regarding the putting the mine into production. So infrastructure. So basically, at Bégin-La-Marche, and I'm going to skip back up to a slide up here. Let's see if I can get to this one slide. Apologies. So you said, how do we compare and with other projects, and what is our capex? So basically, if you look at it from here, the capex to put the mine into production was evaluated around $500 million US, and that's with a 20% contingency. In the mining world, that's considered fairly low as a capex. Also, we don't need to build any infrastructure. We're very close to hydro. We're about 2 kilometers from provincial highway. We are also very close to the ports. We're very close to the intermodal rail stations. We're very close to our own facility. There's no infrastructure to be built, so that should be a fairly solid capex number. The other thing is, in this area where we're in here, this is kind of the valley of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. And then once you get out of here, you start going up into the hills, and it becomes much more difficult. We are still in the valley. We're very close to the Rio Tinto infrastructure. Like I said, we're like 40 kilometers from the Rio Tinto's hydroelectric dam that fuels most of its aluminum making. We are very well positioned for that capex number. I would hope to be and to stay realistic. We're right on major truck, rail, and naval shipping lines. We're very close, tied into the NATO base Bagotville, where there's an airport. There's a commercial and also a passenger airport. So I mean, it's all there within 50 to 70 kilometers. I don't see any major surprises in terms of what this capex would be, and hopefully it would be even rounded downwards if it could, or stay around where it is with that 20% contingency built in, with a very nice $2 billion NPV, a 37% IRR, and a 2.9-year payback. Now that's for our mining facility. Our purified or our phosphoric acid facility, for which we just had the license signed the other day with the world's largest producer of purified phosphoric acid, is no more than a $200 million US build. And that would be located somewhere closer to the downstream processing facility right now, which is First Saguenay, which is currently for 10,000 tons of iron phosphate, is scheduled at $75 million US. So our entire modus operandi behind this project was to just get into the market with the lowest possible capex costs, and that's what we've done. Get in there small, but on a commercial scale, prove it out, and then once we know that you can do it professionally. Only good things can happen, and capital can come. So we're a very reasonably human-sized project. We've really taken good care of our local Indigenous relationships, of our local social acceptability, and we're all about making this happen in the most reasonable way and with local involvement, which is key. Okie doke. I think that that was all the questions that I have here. So I'll just finish off by letting everybody know, the biggest positive about this company is really this, right? It's the igneous source rock. It's the ability of having a deposit that's not only 23 years and can serve a large portion of electrification in North America for the next 23 years, but it's open at depth, and it could go on for a long time. And it's really the fact that you can take this phosphate and convert it immediately into purified phosphoric acid. We do not need to go through the fertilizer industry. We do not need to have anything to do with the fertilizer industry. And we are able to create purified phosphoric acid, which is the holy grail, which is what we are deeply in shortage of to be able to make LFP battery in North America. That's the secret. It's the igneous rock. It's the purity. It's the ability to do this in a green way that doesn't affect the environment. And it's the ability to really do what electrification is supposed to do, make it clean and green, and make it here at home in North America. We're extremely open to working across North America, in the US, in Canada, and in North America. And we see ourselves wrapped in all three flags, and we see ourselves as a real champion of North America. So that's it. Thank you very much. Again, our ticker symbol is FRSPF on the OTCQB market, and on the CSE, it's PHOS. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to any one-on-ones with anybody.